This lesson we've got a nested array with some values that are nested as array values, and what we're going to do is we're going to flatten it using a function to flatten the array value. This lesson we're going to be creating a flattening of a nested array. So first of all, we're going to need a nested array. So this is our nested array that we can use, and I'll just log that out into the console so that we can see the nested array and the values that are contained within it. So that's our nested array, and as we can see, we've got a couple arrays that are nested within it. So what we want to do is we want to flatten this array and then output the flattened version of the array. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a function that's going to handle the flattening. So create a function and we'll just call it flatten. And what this function is going to do, it's going to take one parameter, which is going to be an array, and it's going to return back the array using the reduce method. And the reduce method, and it's returning to make sure to check to see if it is an array. So if the current array is an array, then what we want to do with the value that we've got from the original array, and you're going to do a ternary operator here so that we can check to see if that value, and if it is, then we're going to concatenate the values that are contained within there, and we're going to send that into the flatten array method. So just flatten, and actually I'm going to call this flatten array so that we can be more specific. So what it's doing is it's going to flatten the array, and it's going to pass in the current value of the item within the parent array, and to flatten that. And this will work multiple times, so that if there are some other nested values within the arrays, then it will flatten those as well. So this is going to return back the flattened version of the array. So let's set up a value, and this is going to be the flat array value. So we're taking whatever we've got within the current array, and we're just going to run the method flatten array. So taking the flatten array, and then here we've got the nested array that contains all of the different values, and we want to output that into the console. So this is going to be the flat array that we're outputting into the console. And I do need to return back, so comma separate out and return back that other value there. So that will allow us to flatten it, and this is the now flattened value of the array. So originally it's the nested array, and then we've got the flattened version of the array. So going over this, so the flattened array takes in a single value, which is R, which is the array that you want to flatten. The array prototype reduce, so that's what we're using over here. We're returning that. So this is a method that iterates over each element and returns back that initial array, and the results is a single value. So ACC is going to be the value that's going to be returned back. The reduce itself takes the two parameters. So one is the accumulator. This is the array that will store the flattened elements. So this is the array that stores the flattened elements, and then the val is the current value, and that's what we're using here as we flatten the values of the listed array. And then we're checking to see if there's nested arrays. So that's what this function is doing, is we're checking to see if it is an array, and if it is, then we recursively call the flatten array once again. So it's recursively called, and it flattens it further. So that will flatten any additional values that are nested within the other arrays. And then lastly over here we're using concat, which allows us to concatenate the results together and return back the full value of the flattened array. And this is where we get the output.